Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. It's really been a week to take a close look at Godmen. Some people were wondering whether a lot of the Godmen are actually Gundas, especially after the events of all that happened earlier this week. But we also want to, in this episode of The Big Fight, broaden the subject a little bit, not just look at Sant Rampal and all that happened near Hisar, although we will start with that, but also the broader issue. What is the role that Godmen or so-called Godmen are actually playing in our society? Some of them may be genuine, maybe many of them are fake and false, and what should really be done about all of this. We have a great panel to take us through both aspects of the debate. Let me start by welcoming the people who are here in the studio. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, great to have you with us. Mridul Krishna Bihari Shastri, Dharmacharya, who does pravachans, kathas, bhajans, has a strong view on how many of the Godmen are just media creation, nothing more than that. Professor Ashish Nandi, one of our best known and most famous sociologists, great to have you with us. Yogi Ashwini, who is the guiding light of the Dhyan Ashram. Thank you so much for being with us. My colleague Siddharth Pandey is going to be joining us, cast in hand for at least the first part of it, because you as an eyewitness can tell us exactly what happened in Hisar. We'll spare you the rest of the Godmen discussion, but at least for the first part, it's great to have you with us. We are also being joined by Soli Sorabji, former Attorney General of India, by Nagma, who's a well-known actor, of course, but also leader of the Congress party. Poonam Dhillon is with us as well with strong views. And joining us is Mr. S.K. Garg, who is the lawyer of Mr. Rampal, or Sant Rampal as he is called. And Mr. Garg, why don't I start with you? Gangs of people, commando forces, people, dead bodies being recovered. Just what has been going on inside Mr. Rampal's ashram?
Actually, the position is what he told me today and to my associate lawyers, that actually he was kept in captivity. He himself was in the captivity. These all people, those who were creating this all nuisance, were not the people, those who belongs to him, and he always opposed it. Oh. And he was ready to come in court. Only issue was that he was required to appear in the court in a contempt case, and only simple show cause notice was issued to him.
Mr. Garg, for years he hasn't followed the court orders. Summons after summons, something like 40, 50 of them were issued. None of them he could respond to, because for years the poor man has been held captive by a bunch of thugs in his own ashram. Is that what you're saying?
He has never been served with the notice. Thereafter, non-bailable warrants were issued against him, that were also not served, and thereafter actually he himself was in the captivity.
Who was holding him captive? Out of curiosity, who was holding him captive? He is presumably willing to testify against him and say these are the men who have been holding me captive all this time.
There were some anti-social elements also in the Dera. Now the police is also investigating this aspect of the matter as well.
Okay, can I just get my colleague Siddharth into this? You've been out there. It's a very sad sounding story. Poor Sant Rampal has been held captive there all this time. All those guys throwing petrol bombs and others were somebody completely others, anti-social elements.
I don't think anyone's willing to buy that at all, because at first they said that he's just not fit enough to come out, he's unwell. We've seen pictures of him actually walking around, and in fact the journalists have sustained more injuries than him, which he's supposed to have had.
We see the cast on your elbow.
I mean, in fact, journalists across networks, print journalists, we've all been beaten up. But
that's more to do with the police. So the theory that he's being held captive?
I don't think anyone's buying that. I don't think the court is buying that.
Nalin?
I don't think we are buying it.
Your government eventually did, after some point and after the journalists.
How long was the government in power?
All right, recently. Okay, fine. Finally, the Haryana government. First, the Congress should have done something about it. But are you buying this rather sad story?
But I mean, I won't comment whether it's sad or happy, but it's a fascinating story, definitely. And he's entitled in his legal rights to be able to take any view he takes, even if it is the plea of allegedly being held captive or almost being kidnapped out of there, whatever. So my point is that the onus is for him to explain why did he choose not to accept the court order, and why did he choose not to go and present himself before the court. And there was no need for this drama. Even the Chief Minister of Haryana appealed. This could have been done peacefully, very nicely. It should have been that way. And it's regrettable that it had to be at a situation. So he has to answer for all of it, including the people who have died at the ashram.
Right. So, Mr. Garg, let me ask you about that. The people who died there, bodies have been recovered there, 18-month-old child dying of jaundice. All of that was the actions of these antisocial elements. And I just wanted to understand from you, what point did these anti-social elements take possession of the ashram and of the good Sant?
This is what the fact he told us, and this seems to be very correct to me, because these death, if it is there, and I have heard the DGP also, he also said these all are normal and natural death. It is not a murder. And apart
normal
from this,
and natural deaths in 24 hours, 6 bodies are recovered from ashram. It's normal.
I want to be on the record,
Mr.
Garg. Mr. Garg, I'm not qualifying the nature of the deaths. I'm merely saying, acknowledging the fact that deaths have taken place. They shouldn't have taken place, and I'm putting it on the record. This could have been very nicely handled if the Sant Rampal had chosen to go to the court. Really, now, this is for you as a lawyer to present his case as you like and present it to the court. The court will decide on merits.
No, nobody can stop natural death, and moreover he was not in a position to do anything. When he himself was in the captivity, how he could save anybody? And apart from that, he always appeared in the court earlier also. Here it was only a contempt case where simple show cause notice was issued to him, and he was not served.
So the people who were throwing
what is his fault?
So the people who were throwing petrol bombs, who were allegedly firing, who were attacking the police, those were the same people who had kidnapped him and were holding him hostage. Is that what you're saying? And if that is the case, are you filing charges against all of them?
He never conspired with anybody.
Are you filing charges against those men?
And moreover, there is no reason for him to do like this.
You are saying that he was being held captive, and that the thugs and the gundas who have been now charged with waging war against this country, you are saying they were holding him captive. He was holding a satsang just a day or two back. So were they holding him captive at that time, or was he holding the satsang voluntarily, but not?
In such a huge gathering, anti-social elements may certainly enter.
At what point did they hold him captive?
Problem for everybody.
At what point did they start holding him captive? I'm just curious.
No, Mr. Garg, why did the anti-social elements in the first place get inside the ashram? They didn't allow him to
move out.
Yeah, I think Yogi Ashwini also has a point for you.
I need to know this, because when you started to give the defense, there's a smirk on your face. You need to have a straight face, at least when you lie. You see, when how can you explain to me? How can you explain this to the world? How did anti-social element get inside an ashram? And why was it not reported when there are 12,000 people there? Even one could not report that.
I want one answer from your side also. A person who is appearing in a murder case personally, why he will not appear in the High Court when simplest show cause notice is issued to him?
You see, I'll tell you something. Why he will not appear? Because
give me.
I'll tell you why he did not appear.
Why a person will create
because he thought
a problem
that he will not be touched due to certain patronage which he was getting there. You understand that?
A case
listen to what I'm saying.
Against the state, a very
don't
serious
talk
case.
just for the sake of talking. You know, you'll make a laughing stock of
now the
yourself.
investigation is going on.
Can I just ask Siddharth Pandey, before I come back to Mr. Garg, what exactly happened? What did you see? Was there any evidence at all of this man being held captive or hostage? Or was he having satsangs and moving around fairly freely?
Well, that's really hard to believe, because up till yesterday I was talking to people inside the ashram on the mobile phone. We had several people who were talking on the mobile phone. If he had a problem, if he was being held hostage, he could have easily called up someone for help. A lot of people who are right now being held hostage also saying that, look, we are being held against our will. Can the police come and rescue us? Why not him? And he's a person who's in charge of the ashram. The fact is, no one could get in. The police could not get in. We could not get in. No one could. And as far as the media is concerned, you know, we also tried to just cover this. At some point, of course, things went south for us as well.
And I want to ask you that question now Siddharth. Who attacked you, and how did that happen? Were you, I've heard some people saying, yeah, you know, the media was trying to get inside it. Were you standing where the police had told you to stand and how you should stand, and then they attacked you?
The DGP himself allowed us to go in. He took down the names of all the journalists who wanted to go across the barrier. And this is the last barrier, 800 meters away. We said, can we get to a position where we have a line of sight well within the safety margins? We were 500 meters away. The police came. They escorted us there. And I think around 12 minutes into the operation, the police just turned on us. It was the police who attacked all the journalists.
The police had told you to stand?
Absolutely. In all our shots, you can see us, the police, and then the ashram. We were well behind the police.
Nalin?
Absolutely. I think it's totally condemnable. There's no question about it.
But we're not hearing a very clear condemnation coming from the Haryana government.
You can't hear it more. I can't hear it more unequivocally, I think. I'm saying it's absolutely condemnable, totally regrettable. There's no question about it. It shouldn't be happening for anything. If the media wasn't to be allowed, they shouldn't have been allowed for safety reasons. But once you have allowed them in, there's no reason for you unless the media is participating in a riotous situation to use any kind of force. No, it's absolutely
but force.
Let me just finish this, Siddharth, because absolutely I can see you don't carry a plaster, out of any happiness. It's obviously you've been injured in something that shouldn't have taken place. And as far as I think the focus probably, what your question is, why you haven't heard it probably, because the focus might have been so far in trying to get the situation resolved on this. But I don't think it will go unnoticed. There's no question about it.
The fact that action should be taken against
I'm sure, absolutely. Why shouldn't it be?
Bashing up
no, absolutely not. Sir, no police officer or constable or anybody has a right. There are procedures, there are methods of how you go about it. You can't. There has to be a justification for the use of force. Exceptional situations may be otherwise,
but will there be arrests?
Not on the media.
So those people who are responsible. How about the police?
Well, look, I can't speak on the merits and demerits of it. I'm sure is there a complaint made, whatever the process has to be done. This issue was probably holding it up. This issue is out of the way. I see no reason why this should not go forward.
Nagma, I just wanted to throw a question to you and ask you this question as to what the Congress party has been doing. This entire cult of Babas and others that is happening out there, let's face it, Sant Rampal or Mr. Rampal or whatever you care to call him, his ashram came up and survived under the patronage of the Congress government all these years. Why is it that nobody was able to tell all these years that this is something that's coming up? A huge fort has been built up out there. Thugs and gundas are inside there. And it was allowed to flourish, unchecked all this time.
I'd like to say that why is there an inability by the BJP party or their government in the state and the center to be able to handle a situation like this?
Nagma, I get your point. Fine, they should have handled it. They must have handled it better. And certainly the police assault is something which they're entirely responsible for. But all of these years, why did the Congress government and Mr. Huda,
as well as the state?
I get you, but all this time, why did the Congress government and Mr. Huda allow this thing to come up unchecked?
Yeah, but you're being unfair to Mr. Huda. He was busy handling Mr. Vadra's land cases. Where would there be time to administer the state?
Okay. Low blow out of the way. Now,
low blow out of the way. That's what it was.
So far as the Congress government was in the state, you didn't have any such issue or any such problem of people holding people.
Any such issue? He's been defying summons after summons after summons.
And now you can see that happening. Now you can see that. Allow me to please speak. Allow me to please speak. Allow me to please speak.
Yes. He's defied 42 summons so far. All that happened, most of that happened.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give me my time to speak.
I'm giving you your time now.
No, then was it the inability? Of the BJP in the opposition at the time when Congress was ruling in the state? Was it the inability to point out something like that earlier? When you have a tall leader such as Sushma Swaraj coming out of Haryana?
I want to answer this, please.
Nagma, you're saying that it's not the fault of the government to do something.
And why can't we talk about it now? Why are we talking about when it never happened?
No.
Why are we talking about it now?
I'm going to get into that. Naren?
I mean, this never happened when Congress was in power and the government there.
May I?
So, this is only happening now. So, let's talk about now, what's happening now and the inefficiency of handling
Yes, but the situation has come now because you didn't act all this time and you're saying it's not the fault of the government but the fault of the BJP and the opposition not to do anything about it.
I have to grant this to Nagma ji. This is the most amazing argument I've heard in my life so far as a political spokesperson. By the same logic, the BJP is responsible for 2G, for the Vadra, for every scam in this country because we were in opposition. They were taking the decisions, but we are responsible for sitting in the opposition. My God, that's most incredulous.
All right, can I just get back to the substantive issue? Mr. Soli Sarabji, former Attorney General of India, of course, one of the most noted constitutional authorities in this country. So we've just heard from Mr. S.K. Garg, who's the advocate of Rampal, essentially saying that he himself was being held captive and therefore he is not to blame for everything that has happened. What would be your take on this and what would be your response?
Well, I think it's laughable. You all know he actually defied the court's summons. He was issued a warrant, non-bailable warrant, and he thought that he is so high and mighty the law can touch him. Vikram, it's not this God or Godmen or Gunda, whatever you call him. The basic principle of the rule of law, the basic tenet is, however high you may be, the law is above you. Now this Rampal thought the law is not above him, but he is above the law. Apart from that, it was insult to the judiciary, just not complying with the orders of the judiciary? And what's the use of this blame game, this thing and that thing, and what happened? The question is what happened last week. How can one tolerate this? The real question is, without going into blame game, how did it happen that so many people with arms were inside the ashram and they fired at the police, injured the policeman? This is worrying.
Okay, Mr.
This
SK.
is just an illustration of a serious malice.
I agree, and I want to come to the broader issue. We all want to come now, so I'm going to move back to that. But Mr. Garg, you're just hearing what Swami Nithyananda is saying. Would you like to care to explain to him as to what your defense for Mr. Rampal is going to be? That he was actually held captive?
Listen, sir, regarding defense, I have already told you, and my client has informed us that he himself was in the captivity. Therefore, we are unable to say anything, as now police shall inquire into this aspect of the matter and truth will come out and everybody will know that he is innocent.
Right.
Now, no doubt the government has done a commendable job. They without firing him a single bullet, they controlled the situation.
Yes, yes, and they rescued him.
Very wonderful.
Mr. Swami Nithyananda, you know, if you heard that argument placed in front of you in a court, what would your response be?
I want to ask him, was this plea ever made to the court that he is held captive? Did he ask for police assistance to prevent him to release him from captivity? It's a laughable argument. On the contrary, the grounds he was giving is the ill health and other reasons. Where did he ever tell the court that he is held captive and that's the reason for his non-appearance? That's a completely ridiculous afterthought.
Mr. Garg, did he ever say this to the court, that I'm being held captive by my own supporters? In between the milk and the key?
Yes, this fact has been recorded by the court today in its proceedings.
Today, okay.
On the statement of Mr. Rampal.
Okay. But
And
all these days he hadn't actually, all these days in the satsang and in the encounters, and when the police has been sending him summons and the court has been sending him summons, till today he never has actually said I'm being held captive by my own supporters.
Yeah, he was already there in the captivity when the even notice was issued to him.
Oh.
And apart from this, today's demand is that even in murder case, the matter may be handed over to the CBI.
Oh, maybe he was, yeah.
Kindly see.
He could have been in captivity all the way
Earlier
from
he was
2007. That's also a possibility.
as stated by him.
So you mean it's a possibility he's been held captive all the way from 2007?
Now in this matter, no, not in 2000. He says
not in 2000,
that matter
now.
may also be got investigated from the CBI.
Okay.
Actually, I can give you
2006. Today it is
instead of this
certainly there.
argument,
Police
what
is
he can say,
investigating
he
the
was
matter.
in Samadhi
And,
since 2007.
Nobody has seen him having the gun.
Actually, that's not a bad.
Yeah, actually, it's a very good argument, sir. Very good argument. You see, recently one organization did this, that the Guruji is in Samadhi, so we can't disturb him, so whatever, we don't know. So it's a very good idea, sir. You can take it from me. I don't need a fee for that also.
Mr. Swami Nithyananda, Mr. Surabji, before I come to the broader subject, so, you know, another suggestion made that might actually be a better argument. I don't think I've been held captive, say that I've been in Samadhi. But you heard Mr. Garg, he said that, you know, there's nothing I could do, I was being held captive.
I think it's a very entertaining crime thriller. He admits he never said that to the court till today. Why not?
Or to the
It's
police.
a clear afterthought.
As Siddharth was saying, he was on a mobile phone, he didn't call anyone and say, hey, I'm being held captive, somebody do something about these thugs. Anyway, I think we spent perhaps more time than we need to on this. As Mr. Garg said, this issue will probably be seen by the court at some point, and the courts will no doubt make a ruling on this entire captivity argument. Mr. Garg, you know, you do stay on with us. I'm just wanting to broaden the issue a little bit. Siddharth, thank you so much for having joined us with some inside information as to what to happen. I just want to broaden this a little bit now and take a look at the entire question of Godmen in general in society and where that is taking us. Professor Nandi, you haven't spoken yet on this entire issue. Is this a serious problem that is now having, that in large parts, this is not the first case that we've heard, a number of cases from Asaram Bapu to Swami Nithyananda to others, there have been a range of really controversial cases in the last couple of years. What exactly is happening behind the scenes, or has this always happened?
I think it is not as recent an event as you perhaps think, because we had heard similar stories if not in its more gruesome details, but at least in terms of political influence peddling, in terms of acting as a via media, a political contact person, and so on and so forth over the years. And this has perhaps something to do with a large number of people in India who are the first generation entrants both to an urban life and to modern politics, political environment, public life. They feel lost and rudderless, and perhaps look for something which in another society would have been called psychotherapist or psychoanalyst or psychiatrist.
So instead of going to psychotherapists and psychoanalysts, they go to the Babas and to Godmen.
For instance, when we did our study of 1500 survival, nearly 1500 survivors of the partition violence, we found not one among the 1500 who had gone to psychiatrists or psychotherapists or psychoanalysts, but they did go, many of them, to gurus, family elders, community elders, and so on and so forth. This kind of support base was there. That kind of support base has diminished over the years, and I think an individual is left more and more to himself or herself, and one of the ways we tend to handle this situation is by choosing a personal guru who acts as a counselor, some kind of a psychotherapist, and gives you some element of certitude in an uncomfortably disorienting world.
मृदुल कृष्ण बिहारी शास्त्री, आपने सुना इन्होंने क्या कहा, और जो रामपाल के साथ हो रहा है उस सब के बाद लोग कहते हैं कि जितने भी गॉडमेन हैं, जितने भी बाबा हैं, सब बहुत से वो हैं जो ढोंगी हैं, कुछ करते नहीं हैं. आप इस पर क्या कहेंगे?
जनता जो देख रही है वो अपनी समझ से समझ रही है. यहाँ तक कि मैं भी जब भ्रमित स्थिति पैदा हो रही थी, पहले कुछ अच्छा किया होगा तो इतने लाखों लोग इनके साथ जुड़ गए. फिर इसके बाद में जब चैनल पे चला और कुछ जो है गाड़ियाँ जलाई गईं, कुछ चैनल कह रहे हैं कि वो समर्थकों ने जलाईं, कुछ चैनल कह रहे हैं कि वो विरोधियों ने जलाईं. तो ये भ्रमित स्थिति हुई तो समझ में आया कि कुछ गड़बड़ है. हो सकता है जो ये दिखाई दे रहा है वो सारा जो है बाबा की नज़र में ना हो, ऐसा भी हो सकता है, या बाबा जो है गलत भी हो सकता है. तो ये तो सारा इंक्वायरी का विषय है. मैं आज जो कह रहा हूं कि संत समाज भलाई के लिए होता है और संत समाज सदियों से भलाई करता आया है. हम सब जो है संतों की ही संतान हैं.
हाँ, पर संत कौन है, संत
परंतु
कौन
संत
नहीं
कौन?
है,
हाँ, हमारे यहाँ पर कहा गया है कि गुरु कीजिए जान के और पानी पीजिए छान के.
Too many godmen, too many gurus, too many godmen. How do you?
अब ये जांच का विषय है.
Gurus are very few. 500 gurus, maybe the names you have taken are 5. And out of them, all are saffron. I want you to note that. You have not taken other greens and whites. You should take those names also, where the police will not dare to venture. Saffron is very vulnerable.